আজকের টপিক হচ্ছে লিনিয়ার ফাংশনাল, ডুয়াল স্পেস, অ্যানিহিলেটর আর কোশ্চেন স্পেস। এখানে একটা জিনিস বলার, সেটা হচ্ছে লিনিয়ার ফাংশনাল, ডুয়াল স্পেস, অ্যানিহিলেটর এটা একটা কনসেপ্ট। কোশ্চেন স্পেসটা কিন্তু একটা অন্য টাইপের কনসেপ্ট। এটা দুটো আলাদা কনসেপ্ট, একটা লেকচারে আছে, লেকচার 7। লিনিয়ার ফাংশনাল, হোয়াট ইজ লিনিয়ার ফাংশনাল? V একটা ভেক্টর স্পেস ওভার ফিল্ড F। আমরা জানি যে হোয়াট ইজ লিনিয়ার ট্রান্সফরমেশন। So linear transformation from V to some other field, some other vector space, same field. Now F is vector space. Again, F is vector space over F. So we can think a linear transformation from V to F. So V is a vector space over F. F is a vector space over F. So this is a linear transformation between two vector spaces, and this linear transformation is called linear functional. So linear functional, nothing but transformation, a special kind of linear transformation where the codomain set is F itself. So since it is a linear transformation, so for every A, V and W, it is just A into TV plus TW. Now everything, this TW, TV are all scalar. So everything in A, V, W, TW, or everything in field. Now the interesting part is here A into V is a scalar multiplication. So V is a vector, A is a scalar, so A into V is a scalar multiplication. So A V is a vector plus W, so vector addition, and then T operates on that vector. Now here we know for linear transformation, A into TV, TV is a vector, we can thought as a vector as well as scalar. Now A into TV, if TV is a vector, consider as a vector, then A into TV is just a scalar multiplication, scalar into vector. But TV itself is scalar, so A into TV is again a scalar multiplication also, scalar into scalar. Interestingly, though both the operation is same. If F is a vector space over F, then the second operation of the F, the multiplication operation in the F, is same as scalar operation, external multiplication. So this is the only point to be noted. Now a good example of linear functional is, if say Fn to F, Fn is a vector space over F, is a linear functional. Say for fixed, if you fix A1, A2, An, if T applied on A1, A2, An, basically we need one more bracket, but sometimes we omit this, the second one, we write only this. Sometimes also write TV like that, TV. So this is just A1, oh sorry, this A1, A2, N are fixed. We have to take input as x1 is to xn. A1, A2, N is fixed, but x1 is to xn are any scalars. Here is A1 x1 plus A2 x2, the dot product. So this is a very important linear functional when the vector space is Fn. If the vector space is not Fn, we can do the same thing. We choose order basis, and do you have a coordinate of that? So any V, we have a first fixed ordered basis, some v1, v2, vn. For any v, we have this coordinate c1, c2, cn. Since the ordered basis, this representation c1, c2, cn is unique, and then we define TV as c1 a1 plus c2 a2 cn a for some fixed a1 a2 an. If you change a1 a2 n, the linear functional will be changed. So this t, the linear functional, depends on f1 a1 a2 an. Now the question is, this type of linear transformation, is this all the linear transformation of this form? Number one is a question. Is now if we change a1, if you run a1 a2 an over the fn, you will get a collection of linear functionals. Is this form a vector space? This type of question arises. Now the next thing is space of all linear functionals. Now we know the set of all linear transformation forms a vector space again. So that's why similarly all the linear functional over V forms a vector space. How? So if T1 and T2 two linear functional, V to F linear functional, then T1 plus T2, how to define T1 plus T2? Of V is T1V plus T2V, and this T1 plus T2 now it is a linear functional because T1 plus T2 is a linear transformation, and this belongs to F. T1 plus T2 is a linear transformation. Similarly, some CT operation V defined like that. So this CT is a linear transformation. Why? Because if you take CT at some AV plus say V1 plus V2, by definition it is C into T of a V1 plus V2, but this T of a V1 plus V2, since T is a linear transformation, a T V1 plus T V2. Now this is a into C T V1 plus C into T V2, which is actually a what? It will, we have to, what we have to prove? We have to prove that this is equal to CT of AV1 plus CT of V2. We have to prove that. So now we have to pull this A inside. So this is CT AV1, this is a commutative law, AC equal to CA, and then we can pull this A inside T because T is a linear transformation. So this is CT of V2 and this is CT of AV1. Similarly, you can prove the sum for sum, this one. That means your all the linear functionals on V forms a vector space, and this vector space has a name which is called dual space of V. So next topic is dual space. So what is dual space? Dual space is a set of all linear functional from V to F. Sometimes it's write like that. All linear functional from V to F. We write V star. The notation is V star. So V star is a law linear, or is it actually linear transformation of V to F? Linear functional on V means is a linear transformation from V to F. Now, what is the dimension of the dual space? So, to find the dimension, basically we need to find the basis. Now, there is a, we know that for a vector space there are infinitely many choices of bases. By the way, there are some other good example of linear transform functional is trace of the matrix T operation. They define the trace of it. This is the element of field. A is coming from some Fn cross Fn. So it is n cross m matrices. So it is also this trace function is a linear functional on the set of all n cross m matrix whose elements coming from F. Another important linear function is the integration. If we take G set of all continuous function on say A to B, G is a set of all continuous function on A to B, right? C A B. Then this integration A to B, GT dt in that case F will be your real line. To define this integration, we need F as a real line. So this is also linear function. We know this is a linear. L of G plus F is just LG plus LF. We know that. The integration of sum is just sum of the integration. And this is belongs to this. Here R. We know this integration definite integral is a real number. And since it's continuous on bounded interval, function is bounded, and so it's a Riemann integral. And one more important example is called evolution function. So take all polynomials, space of all polynomials, a vector space, set of all polynomials from F to itself. The polynomials are from F to F. So taking value input as F, field element scalar, and output. So you consider this collection polynomial. Now this is a vector space. Now to define a linear functional on that vector space, if fix and say T fixed T in F fixed, for that T suffix LT is a linear functional. It will take input from the vector space. So the element of the vector space is a polynomial now. Take any P and give output PT. Because P is a polynomial and PT is a scalar. And you can easily check this a linear function. It's a linear function. So it is a linear function. Because if P represents P plus Q, then P plus Q apply on T is PT plus QT. So these are very important linear function. Now, to find the basis of dual space, this basis is also called dual basis of an ordered basis. So fixed first ordered basis of V, ordered basis of V, say this V1, V2, V, ordered basis. Now we define n function linear functional f1, f2, fn. So these are linear functions. So f1, f2, fn are linear transformation from v to f. How do we define? We define like that: if I v j is Kronecker delta I j. That means f1 v1 is 1, f1 v2 is 0, f1 v3 is 0, f2 v1 is 0, f2 v2 is again 1. Now we'll show this f1, f2, fn forms a basis, actually forms an ordered basis of the dual space. So we need to show these are independent and this span the dual space. That means for every linear functional, we can express that linear functional in terms of a linear combination of f1, f2, fn. So why this f1, f2 are linearly independent? Okay, we choose C1, C2, Cn such that f1, Cf1 Cn fn is a zero linear functional. Zero means zero linear function. The linear transformation 0. That means this zero in the right hand side is the function. So operates on every element of V gives 0. That 0 is scalar 0. Now C1 F1 plus dot Cn Fn operates on some Vj, the basis element, because every linear transformation actually determines by the basis. If you know the output of the basis element, you can find the output of any vector. So we check only on the basis. Now this is 0 for all j, because the right hand side is a 0 functional. So this 0, now it is a scalar 0. Now what happened? This is f1 vj, it will be 0 or 1. So if vj is v1, then it is c1. c1 f1 v1 is c1, c2 f2 v2 v1 is 0. So if j is 1, then it is c1. If j is 2, then it is c2. So it is delta ij cj. If j is 1, oh sorry, what is this? Delta, there is no I, sorry. Just okay, we just write this like that. So v1. So this implies c1 equal to 0. Oh, it's okay. Sorry, no delta. So if you take j, then it gives only cj. Right. This cj. So f1 vj will be 0 if j not equal to 1. So only fj vj is 1. So it is cj. So for all j. So it is independent. Now, how any linear functional can be expressed in terms of f1, f2, fn? So take any linear functional f. Now we know this is defined, this is totally determined by the output of the basis element. So we take this as some cj. Now we can easily check that f is nothing but c1 f1 plus c2 f2 cn. because this is actually, this part is actually CG. Now this left hand side is F and right hand side is C1 F1 plus C2 F2 plus Cn Fn. This right hand side and left hand side matched for every basis element, so it's matched for all vector. So we can express any function in terms of this F1 F2 Fn. So this is the basis. So the basis, dual basis is same as the basis. Oh, if V is a finite dimensional, here we assume that V is a finite dimensional vector space, then dual space, the dimension of the dual space is same as dimension of the vector space. You can easily find the dual basis for say there is say Fn to F. So Fn is the vector space, and you can easily find what will be the dual basis of this linear functional on Fn. For that you need a ordered basis. So ordered basis is your standard basis. Then you know what are the F1 F2 Fn. You can find F1 F2 Fn, and that will be the ordered basis of the dual space. Now the converse also true. For if V is a finite dimensional vector space and this beta is a ordered basis of V. Now we know there is a basis, dual basis, and this dual basis is unique. V1, V2, Vn is given to you. We first fix V1, V2, Vn the ordered basis. Then we define F1, F2, Fn. This F1, F2, Fn, by definition, the definition. The conversely, this is unique. Unique in what sense? This is unique in the sense for each linear functional F in linear functional in F is a linear functional. This F is actually the sum over I equal to 1 to n. This Fi is, and the coordinate is this C1, C2, Cn, the coordinate. That means this is the F of Vi. So this F can be written in this form. If you want to write F in this form, then this Fi's are unique. And if you have any vector V in V, then this will be Fi V of V. Interesting. This is just changing. Fvi, the scalar, and the vectors are Fi. Here Vi's are the scalar and Fiv will be the scalar. And this is called dual basis. Just look on this expression, these two expressions. Similar expression. One for the V and one for the dual space. The right hand side for the dual space, and left is for the vector space. Now the double dual. This is very important, double dual. So these are the set of all linear functional. So now this is a vector space. Now we want to find again one node, some say L or L. Maybe confusing L. So it is a T. Okay, we write the beta. We write L of VF as like V star. So take a linear transformation from V star to F now. So what is the meaning? That means L will take input vector, but this vector is not from the V, from the V star. That means it's a linear function. You have to take a linear function as the input, and you have to give the output scalar. What's the easiest way to do this? Easiest way to do this, fix alpha first from V, fix the alpha from V. For that alpha, we have a linear functional L alpha defined like that, f of alpha. You take f as input and give f alpha as output. Fix alpha first, and you can easily check this f alpha is a linear transformation, so it is a linear functional on V star. This is a natural choice. So again, this is the dual of this dual basis will be contained with this L alphas, where alpha must be taken as a basis from the V. So we take alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n as the basis from V, then define this construct with L alpha 1, L alpha 2, L alpha n, and this will give a basis for V star star double dual. You can easily check that. Now we have a good mapping from V to V star star. Now L alpha is a mapping, is a linear transformation from V star to F. So if L alpha is element of V star star. Now this choice of L alpha, the L alpha actually depends on the choice of alpha. So for different alpha, we have a different L alpha. Now this is a mapping. So this is again this is a linear transformation from V to V double star. This is also called natural isomorphism from V to V double star. Take alpha as input from V, give L alpha as output in the V double star. What is L alpha? L alpha is a transformation such that if you take f as a linear functional f as the input, it will give f alpha as output. And you can easily check this again a linear transformation from V to V double star. And not only linear transformation, is isomorphism. So this is also called natural isomorphism between V and V star. And the important result is, if V is everything is finite dimensional vector space. If V is a finite dimensional vector space, in this lecture we will take only finite dimensional vector space over F, and L is a linear functional on the dual space. So L is a linear functional on the dual space of V star. So L is a linear functional on the dual space. Then we define L alpha as F alpha for a fixed alpha. Now, if you have F is a fixed, if F is fixed, you'll get a fixed alpha. The converse also is true. If you first alpha fixed, if you fixed alpha first, then we will get L, which depends on choice of alpha. So fixed alpha, then we will get L alpha as a linear functional on V star. Now the opposite way, we first fixed and linear functional on V star L, then we will get a alpha. This is a unique alpha in V such that LF will be F alpha. That's why it's called natural isomorphism. For every choice of alpha, we have a L alpha linear function of V star. That means a double dual. That is, for every V element of V, we have an element on V star star. Similarly, for every element of V star star, naturally we have a alpha from V. And for that alpha, the construction of the L will be give the same L what we fixed first. So there is a F. If we fixed alpha in V, there is a construction, we will get L, and if we fixed L, we will get an alpha. If we go to the same construction as previous, we will get the same L. So that's why it's called natural isomorphism between V and V double star. Now, next topic is hyperspace or hyperplane. So in two dimension, if V is R2, say F is R. In two dimension, all the line passing through origin is a subspace. These are line. For three dimension, all the plane passing through origin, all the plane passing through origin, say something like that. These are plane. But in two dimension line and in three dimension plane, in sort of same category, like that. If it is n dimensional, then every n minus one dimensional subspace, like that. And these are called hyperplane from the name. So straight line also a hyperplane in two dimension or hyperspace. So it's basically, if it's an n dimensional vector space, again we will be finite dimensional vector space. Then it is n minus one dimension. So there are two definitions of hyperspace, equivalent definition. Number one is a subspace of n minus one dimension. Dimension of V is n, then it is a dimension of the hyperspace or hyperplane, same thing, n minus one. And this dimension, if the dimension of a subspace is n minus one, this is sort of maximal subspace. What is the meaning of maximal? So if you have a hyperplane, and if you take any other subspace of V, say W is a hyperspace or hyperplane, and if you take any other, say W dash, then either W dash is equal to W or W dash is equal to V. If it is the proper subspace, if W is the proper subspace of W dash, then W dash will be the V. In that sense, it's called maximal proper subspace. No other proper subspace which contain W. Because if you proper subspace, the dimension will decrease. Dimension cannot be equal. So the dimension of W dash should be greater than n minus 1, which is n. Now there is another way to describe these hyperplanes. So if you have a linear functional T, take linear functional, and the null space of the linear functional, null space, a kernel of T is a hyperplane or hyperspace. It's kernel of T. Why? It's clear. Oh, this T is non-zero. This non-zero linear function. Since it is non-zero linear functional, the TV, the dimension of TV is 1. Why it is 1? It is non-zero, so it is not 0, but it is a subspace of F, and dimension of F is 1. So dimension of TV is 1. It can't be greater than 1. Now we know from the rank nullity theorem, the dimension of the kernel plus dimension of the range, that means rank of T is 1, is equal to rank of V, which is n. So that means all the hyperplanes is just a, not, I don't know what is all. If you take a linear functional, non-zero linear functional, if it is a zero linear functional, then null space will be whole V. The non-zero linear functional, then the kernel or null space of T is a hyperplane. And conversely, we can prove that every hyperplane is a null space of some linear function. That is a very important and interesting result. Every hyperspace is a null space of some linear function. You can just check this for Fn, maybe R3. So R3 to R. So what are the plane passing through origin? Is A1x1 plus A2x2 plus A3x3 is equal to 0. This is a plane, equation of plane. So that means all x1, x2, xn, x3 in R3 will satisfy this condition. So now it is a null space of T, where T of x1, x2, xn is defined like that, like dot product T1, x2, x3, this ax1. If we define this is a linear functional. T defined from R3 to R. T of x1, x2, x3 is a1, x1, a2, x2 plus a3, x3. And this null space is exactly this. You can extend for Rn also in Fn. It's not only in Rn. Actually, the product is defined for any field. So A1, if F1, A1, x1 in the field element, so A1, x1 is defined. So it is similar for Rn. Similar thing, just A1, x1 plus A2, x2 plus A3, x3 dot A n xn is equal to 0. This is the equation of hyperplane. And this is the null space of that linear functional of T of x1, x2, xn is that dot product linear function for a fixed A1 into A. If we change A1 into N, we'll get different hyperplane. The interesting part is any n minus k dimensional, any n minus k dimensional subspace of V is an intersection of k many hyperplane. This is the most crucial and important result. So this actually characterizes all the subspace through hyperplane. So for k equal to 1, for k equal to 0, it is just V, and V is intersection of 0 many hyperplane. So for intersection of 0 many set is we take as all V, like union of 0 many, union of phi set is phi only 0 containing 0. If you take 0 many vector space, and if you take the union, will by definition will take that as a set containing 0. Similarly, for intersection, 0 many intersection of 0 many subspace, by definition will take as V. So 1 n minus 1 dimensional subspace, that is a hyperspace. Intersection just one intersection means it's just a one hyperplane. For 2 n minus 2, so you can easily check for 3 dimension R3. So in R3, n equal to 3, k equal to 2, then one dimensional subspace is just a line passing through origin, and this is actually the intersection of two planes. K many hyperplane means it is not any hyperplane. If you take two hyperplane and you take the intersection, two different hyperplane, then it will give n minus 2 dimensional subspace. But if you fix the subspace first, you have to choose properly that plane. It's both way. If you take two hyperplane, consider just visualize just like a plane in a 3 dimension. If you take two different plane passing through origin, intersection will be a line passing through origin. So it is a dimension 1 subspace. And if you take any subspace with dimension 1, that means any line passing through origin, you can find two plane passing through origin whose intersection is that line. But this choice of this plane is not unique. You can take any two plane passing through that line. But if you fix two planes, that intersection is unique, line is unique. But if you choose the line first, n minus k dimensional subspace, choose that first, fix that n minus k dimensional subspace, then your that k many hyperplane, choice of that k many hyperplane is not fixed. But there is always a choice. That means your all the subspace for a finite dimensional vector space then just characterized by through the hyperplane. That means any n minus k dimensional subspace is just an intersection, means it is just a solution of the set of equations of some linear functional, say f1 v equal to 0, f2 v equal to 0. To show it for 3-dimensional geometry, say, or actually in system of linear equation, k many. Solution of this system of linear equation actually gives a linear system of linear equation. If you take vector space as fn, and that solution gives your n minus k dimensional subspace of Rn. If you take Rn or fn, that means the solution of this linear system of linear equation is subspace of n minus k dimensional if they are independent. And conversely, if you take a subspace, it actually can be described in terms of k many independent linear equation, and that choice is not fixed. That f1 choice of f1 f2, and that leads to another concept as for annihilator. Annihilator of a set is just take a function, first fix a set, is a set, may not be subspace, is a set. What is annihilator? First, if take a linear functional such that fx equal to 0 for all x. Or you could say v is a vector basically, so or alpha, f alpha is equal to 0 for all alpha. Now this f is may not be unique, may not be no such f always exists. There is 0 always satisfies, 0 functional always satisfies this. This is a functional, f is from v to f. So this right hand side 0 is the scalar 0. So f is a linear functional on V, and S is fixed. S is a subset of V. Now, what is the condition for a f? F alpha will be 0 for all alpha in S. Sometimes it's called f annihilates S. F annihilates S. Now this f 0 is always the annihilates S. So this the collection of all linear functional is not empty. 0 is always the 0 functional. Now this collection all f such that f is a linear functional and not all linear functional. Set of all linear functional is dual space such that this condition holds. So this is obviously a subset of the dual space, and you can easily check that this set is again a subspace of this term. This forms a subspace. So if f annihilates set S, then G annihilate set S, f plus G also annihilate. It is easy. F plus G alpha equal to f alpha plus G alpha, which is 0. 0 plus 0. Multiplication scalar multiplication is also same. So this collection of all such linear function which satisfies this condition, f alpha equal to 0 for all alpha in S. This is actually subspace of the dual space, and this is called annihilator of S. Annihilator S. Now, clearly, you can just, if you think, and you can easily see that if S0 is an annihilator of S, and if you actually S0 is same as is an annihilator of the span of S. The span of S is a subspace of V, and that subspace, if you find the annihilator of that subspace, this will be same. Because if f annihilates alpha, f annihilates beta, then f actually annihilates a alpha plus beta. Because f of a alpha plus beta is a into f alpha plus f of beta, because f is a linear function. It's a both way. If f plus g of alpha, af plus g of alpha is a alpha, f alpha plus g alpha, and in the other way, f of a alpha plus beta is a f alpha plus f beta. So alpha beta in S then any element of the span, finite dimensional, can be written in the linear combination of that element of S, and that every element of S, if annihilate that, so it will annihilate the linear combination. So it's annihilate the whole subspace span by this S. If you take any subspace first, you take a subspace W, the annihilator is just W, annihilator of W. The span will be the same W. So you can think as a set, and or you can think as a span of that. You can easily visualize all these things geometrically. What is actually annihilator? Second annihilator is a if you go to the when you go to the non-linear space, you'll get that this actually annihilator the perpendicular orthogonal complement of this subspace. This annihilator basically an orthogonal complement of that W, because every element of this W and the annihilator is a perpendicular. If you take the dot product as a linear function. So this is also the dual space. So dimension of V and plus dimension of W not, that is annihilator of W, same as W, dimension of W. You can easily check with this the guideline, the line of this proof is okay, say W, say alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha k is a basis of W. We extend this basis, the basis of V. Now you take the dual basis, up to this part is the basis of W. Take the dual basis, and you can easily see that this part, this is the next part, ordered basis. So this is a dual basis. This is the basis of V star. This part actually, the span, this part will actually generate annihilator of W. Because by the definition of dual basis, this operates on apply on this will be 0. Everything here apply on that part will be 0. So this is belongs to the annihilator of W, that is clear. But why this is basis, you have to check its span W, annihilator of W. So that means if you take any linear function on W which is annihilate W, any linear function on V which is annihilate W, this can be expressed in terms of this, and this is independent. This is independent is clear because this is a part of the basis, so it is independent set. So you have to just check whether it span all this. So there is a there is a linear functional on W and V such that we annihilate W. Then you have to show that f can be written in terms of this. Now this is a linear function, so f can be written in terms of f1, f2, fn, and you can just easily check this up to this k part will be 0. Why this is 0? You can easily check. This all this C1, C2, Ck will be 0. Just take that part basis. I'll take alpha 1, so f of alpha 1. F of alpha 1 equal to 0, and f of alpha 1 nothing but just a C1. This C1, yes, f of alpha 1 is of f1 of alpha 1. Only f1 of alpha 1 will be just, otherwise all will be 0. f2 alpha 1, f3 alpha, yes, f1 alpha 1 is 1 and other part is 0. So it is just C1. So C1 equal to 0. Similarly, C. So this will prove that this dimension of W and the annihilator, the dimension is W. Now there is a different type of concept, this quotient space. It's a very important concept, not only for the vector space. This is a concept is important for other area, group, field, whatever. Area, any algebraic structure, this is very important. Eventually in the set theory also, the concept of partition. So there is a set, and you just partition this. Why you partition some set? There is a several reason for partition. No, just a set partition. The union is whole set and they are disjoint. But for some algebraic structure, from group or vector space, this partition you have to cleverly partition all the vector space such that that partition have some extra property. What is the idea? Idea is like that. Is the idea of quotient. So take R2 as a vector space, and we have a line passing through. Take any line passing. Say the x-axis. This is a vector subspace. Subspace of R2, dimension 1. Now you take all the flats, parallel lines, and this all the parallel lines actually give the partition of the whole R2. And these are called coset. In W, this is alpha plus W. Coset, or is actually flat. Similarly, you can take partition in other way also. Take any other line passing through origin, take W1, and take the parallel lines, which are the coset. Now you take this as a single element, the line, say alpha bar. So this is 0 bar. The whole line is a single element. It's a single object. That means we identify the whole line with that element. We think, okay, this any element on this axis will be we take as 0. This say alpha. Any element on this line, alpha plus w, will take as a alpha. We take it just identify with alpha. All the element identify with alpha, or sometimes we call alpha is a representation of this whole line. That's why you say alpha bar. You can take any other representation. So we take alpha bar. Now, can we make this collections as a vector space? Remember, alpha plus w is equal to beta plus w if and only when alpha plus w plus beta plus w is same. Clearly, if alpha minus beta in w, if alpha minus beta in w, then alpha plus w equal to beta plus w. Why it is clear? Because alpha plus w equal to beta plus w means alpha will be alpha plus w. Alpha belongs to alpha plus w, so alpha belongs to beta plus w. That means alpha equal to some beta plus w1. W1 belongs to w. So alpha minus beta belongs to w if and only if that. Now, how do you make this collection as a vector space? So you have to first define some over the same field. You have to define some addition and scalar multiplication. We define addition natural way. This will be alpha plus beta. Now this bit plus is in the vector space W after this quotient. And you have to prove that it's well defined, because if alpha plus w is same as alpha dash plus w and beta plus w will be beta dash plus w, then you have to show that alpha plus beta plus w is same as alpha dash plus beta dash plus w. That means if given alpha minus alpha dash belongs to w, beta minus beta dash belongs to w, you have to show that alpha plus w, alpha plus beta minus alpha dash plus beta dash belongs to w. That is trivial because w is a subspace. And similar for that, we define scalar multiplication with that as C alpha plus W. And this operation makes this collection of all coset as a vector space. And this vector space is called quotient space. Quotienting by that W. We sometimes write this as V mod F W. V quotient W. So element of V quotient W, V mod W, is just a coset. It's not an element of W. It is element are like that here, where alpha belongs to V. Now this is a very important idea, not only for vector space, it is for group, ring, field, everywhere. This idea is very important. Making quotient. Because showing some isomorphism is actually depends on this quotient space. The basic idea is called first isomorphism theorem is that the second isomorphism theorem is actually that. So you first say there is a say W, V is the vector space, you quotient by some W. And again there is another subspace, say S. Now you can quotient W by S. So which will be W by S, W quotient by S. And now the element of W quotient S, this is actually a subset. W quotient S is a subset of V quotient S. And not only subset, these are W quotient S is a subspace and V quotient S is a subspace. Vector space. V quotient S is a vector space and the S, W all are subspace. S is subspace of W, W is subspace of V. So S is subspace of W also, V also. So W quotient S is a subspace of V quotient S. Now we can think one more quotient T. So what are the element of this? This element of this is very complicated, like that. These are the element of V quotient W. So these elements are like that. You can easily show that this is isomorphic to V quotient S. Oh, should I check this? No, this is wrong. Sorry. V quotient S. W quotient S is a subspace of V quotient S. So V quotient S again quotient by the W quotient S. But it is isomorphic to V quotient W. Sorry. What? V quotient W. Yes, V quotient S. W quotient. Yes. The idea is basically this. So if you quotient something, that means you are actually the quotienting space W, you are actually identify the every element of W like 0. You identify that element of W as 0. So if you, this is a V, there is a subspace W, then again S in between that. So first you V quotient S means you identify all the element of S like 0. So first identify all the elements in S is 0. Then the elements of V will be identified some other elements in V quotient S. Then similarly, that element of W quotient S identified some elements. Now, second time, next time you are quotienting by W quotient S means you are identify that element which already identify with the element of W identified some element. That element you again identify 0. That means after 2 steps you actually identify all the element of W in 0. That's why it's isomorphic to V quotient. But you have to prove formally. But idea is this, and you can go 3, 4 step, any step, number of steps. So that's why sometimes we don't write as the identification. We call that as a, okay, these are equal, because otherwise the elements of this will be very highly complicated. These elements, if you want to write these elements of V quotient W, not V quotient W, the V quotient S quotient W quotient S, that will be highly complicated. This is a collection of sets, because alpha is an element of vector, alpha is a vector, and alpha plus W is a collection of vectors. Now this alpha plus W quotient S is actually collection of vectors. If more layer we will go up. So that is collection of collection. We don't actually do this. We actually want, okay, this is a identify with this. We say this every element is 0. We identify something in congruence in number 2. In modulo 7, we will identify 7 with 0. What is 1 in modulo 7 is actually not 1. It is set of 1, 8, 11, all 7k plus 1 many of the form number 7k plus 1. But that will be complicated then. We say, okay, this is 1. Every element of this set we identify 1. And that makes life easy actually. So we have this geometry of quotient space, we have this, we already told this. If you take W as a line saying through origin, basically this all the lines parallel to this line is the quotients, and you can easily see the identification like with would be like that. Take a perpendicular line on that, and you can take alpha as that. So this is alpha plus W. You can take any other line, not a perpendicular. Maybe take any other line. So this will be alpha. If you take any other line, the other point will be alpha. And just you actually squeeze this all line, the whole line to a single point. So it is a beta then. And this, then the whole plane squeezed to this line. Only this points on the line survive. And this is actually quotient space. And clearly, you can find the dimension of the quotient space. What is the dimension of quotient space? You can easily guess the dimension of the quotient space will be dimension of V minus dimension of W. If W is V, then it is only now space containing only 0 element, because every element of V identifies the 0. If W is V, then dimension of V mod W is V mod W is the dimension of V, because then it is actually identified with V. Every element of 0, only 0 identifies the 0. So this quotienting idea is very important to prove some isomorphism and further analysis of this all linear algebra, or it's actually important for vector field theory, and not only in the field theory and algebra, it is actually important in the statistics analysis. Also, it is very important the quotienting idea, because the previous today lecture in previous part is actually the something which is in the linear algebra part, but this is not in the actual linear algebra part. This is actually more generalized version. In analysis, in other modern algebra, everywhere this quotienting idea is very important. So that's all for today.